Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to thank Father Larry and your team for being our sponsor this morning. We appreciate everything you do for our community. I will say I enjoy him speaking every morning when he comes and sponsors. It's always entertaining and funny, too, so I wouldn't call you a stick in the mud either. It might have been that bourbon ball, though. Earl Hewlette is CEO of Terracentia Corporation and has worked tirelessly the past 2 years to bring O.Z. Tyler Distillery back to life. It's no secret the historic distillery has been around since the 1800s and has been making good Kentucky bourbon for decades. Today we welcome Earl to hear more about the exciting progress that is underway at O.Z. Tyler Distillery. Big, warm rooster welcome to Earl Hewlette.
If I can negotiate. Thank you very much, Adam, and good morning. Father, I hope I can help you with your enrollment, at least those of age. And I can't tell you how much it meant to me to learn that you weren't a Baptist institution. But I'd like to start by recognizing my wife, who's here, who supports me. She's a director and a substantial shareholder in our company. And we also have a significant number of shareholders here. They've traveled from long distance, and they're here because they wanted to see the distillery, and we're happy to show it to them as part of our annual meeting. Annual shareholders meeting. We're having that after this breakfast. We also have some contractors here with us. One of the nice things about doing this renovation has been working with a lot of local talent. Gerald O'Brien Construction has been doing the main structural work that you'll see from some of the slides in a minute. Norman King Electric, Michael King is here, has been a key contractor for us. We've used Vendome out of Louisville for all of our stainless tanks. Our fermenters are still the important pieces of our business. Vitok Engineering out of Louisville also has done all of our engineering work. Chuck Ward has done our mechanical. He's really from Florida, but he has been resident here long enough to have citizenship, I think. But he's done all of our mechanical piping. And then a lot of other contractors under them. So it's been a pleasure working with them. I also would recognize Jacob Call. Jacob is our master distiller. His father, Ron Call, is also with us. He's our consulting master distiller. And Jacob's grandfather, John Call, is not here this morning. He's 95, but he's in town for the grand opening. And this family is from Bardstown. They have been in the distilling business 3 generations now. So they bring all that history and talent to Owensboro, and we're happy to have them here. What I'd like to do now is maybe take you a little bit down memory lane, because there are many, many of you that have family history at the Medley Distillery. I hear that from people all the time. Well, I remember my uncle or my grandfather used to work there. So in some cases, some people come up and say, I worked there as a kid. So the interest in the distillery has been significant. And it's come to us from all aspects of the community, including all of you. You don't understand probably what it means to a company that has to relocate people into a community to have what you have here, what all of you have created. It's an amazing city, and it makes it very easy to tell somebody that I want you to move to Owensboro. And the other thing is that you have an enormous pool of talented labor here. So those two things are critical to a decision to move into a new community. And you've all significantly contributed to that. Also, your economic development folks gave us some incentives that were very gratifying to help us get started here. So all around, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is an older picture, probably in the 50s. You can see the smoke coming out of the coal-fired boilers, and those buildings were built in the 30s, right after Prohibition. There was a distillery on this site in 1885, and there was bourbon distilled there until shortly before Prohibition. That distillery burned, and then this one was built, as I said, in the 30s. Very historic buildings, and now, fortunately, we've been able to bring them back to life with very modern technology. Some of you might recognize one of these cars. I don't know, maybe it belonged to one of your relatives. But it's another picture. You can see the smokestacks. Only half of one of those smokestacks remains today, and that low building is all gone. That was the building that housed the coal-burning boilers. But the other building on the right and the water tank there in the middle, all that's the still house, and it's present, but renovated. You may remember Medley, the Medley Brothers brands. They're still around, and the Medley family has been so welcoming and generous to us. Some of them shared some of these photographs with us. Charles Medley, Dr. Wathen Medley, Bill Medley have all welcomed us, and that's been most appreciated. I was told a story by Dr. Wathen that when in one of the phases of ownership and operation of the distillery, you could tell when they were distilling bourbon, because the stillage, what's left over, the spent grain after you've gotten the alcohol out, the spillage was piped directly into the Ohio River. You can't do that today, unfortunately. But he said you could tell that bourbon was being made because you could look out in the river and there would be this big plume out in the middle of the river, and the fish would just be jumping like crazy. We hear stories and stories and stories, and enjoy every one of them. This is the entry today. It's even a little more cleaned up now, but you see the new sign, the O.Z. Tyler sign. And there's, on the left, you can see the still house, and grain handling was inside, and there's one piece of grain handling there on the left. That's the old facility. On the right is the new grain handling. And you can see it's many millions of dollars of grain handling equipment, and it's outside because you don't want that dust buildup, that grain dust, which is very much an explosion hazard. So we've added all of that. And on the left here you see the old still, and on the right the new still. The old still had the capacity to do 30,000 barrels of bourbon a year. The new still can do 75,000 barrels a year, so a significant upgrade. The old still was usable but its useful life was limited, and we knew that when it came time to replace it, it would cause us to shut down for a significant period of time. These stills are 5 stories tall, and removing one and putting another one in is no easy feat. So while we were renovating everything else, we decided now's the time to go ahead and upgrade the still. You can see the condition of the buildings, since this was the worst, but we had to do a lot of work. This was an old fermentation room that would hold 8 fermentation tanks. Those fermentation tanks actually were old wooden fermentation tanks that are now located at Maker's Mark. They were sold off some time ago. That building has been reconstructed, you can see on the right, and it's ready for us when we're ready to expand our capacity. We will add back 8 more state-of-the-art fermentation tanks in that room. Fermentation tanks we have on the left, you see the tanks that were built by Vendome in the 30s, and they are open tanks. You had to climb down in them to clean them. We had Vendome upgrade them. On the right, you can see they're covered now. They have clean-in-place devices. They have agitation. They have better temperature controls. So thoroughly updated. And the left, you can see the old controls, big analog controls. They really didn't control anything. You controlled everything manually, but this gave you the information you needed to tell you when to open a valve or shut a valve or perform some part of the distilling process. On the right, you know we live in the computer world. So all of those big old analog graphs are no longer used. It's all done by PC. We kept the one bank of older equipment. We try and protect some of the history because we intend to have a museum, and we want, as we give tours, we want people to understand how whiskey used to be made and now how it's made today. You can see the old lab, and you can see the new lab. The new lab is a gas chromatograph machine, which analyzes down to the molecule what's in a whiskey. Now, take a deep breath. When you're feeling blue, just walk into one of our rick houses. I promise you, about 20 minutes of deep breathing exercise right here will make you feel a lot better. We have 6 of these that store 20,000 barrels each, and we can't wait till we have them all full. 9 storage tanks. This is our barrel filling and dumping and our storage area. And then we connect that to our processing area, which is this, where we have 10 of our patented TerraPure machines at work, improving the bourbon we make. People ask about the name change. We are the O.Z. Tyler Distillery, and that's because there was a man whose name was Orville Zelotes Tyler III. Some people called him O.Z. Most people called him Ty. I guess if you had a name like Orville Zelotes, you would get a nickname pretty quickly. I wish you could have known him. He passed away a couple years ago. He was a kind, courtly Southern gentleman. And everybody that knew him loved him. Very, very bright guy, very, very curious mind. Born in Savannah, educated at Bowdoin and then in Tulane. He invented things that you have come to use every day in his career. He invented the coating that made it possible to put soft drinks in cans. He invented indoor-outdoor carpet, washable wallpaper, outdoor latex paint, and then he invented the TerraPure process in his retirement. He invented it because in his retirement, Ty enjoyed Scotch whiskey, particularly Macallan 12. And so Ty, one day, started thinking about Scotch whiskey and asking himself, why do they put it in barrels and put it away for 12 years? Probably to make it better, but why does that make it better? And he enlisted his stepson, Edward Bailey, who's here today. Edward, stand, please. So, Edward is still with our company, thankfully, and he's in charge of our research and development and our machines. And Ty went to Edward, who was an architect, and said, come on, help me with this project. And so they started looking at what happened inside the barrel. What was the barrel doing to make Macallan 12 better? And what they realized was that the barrel, those barrel staves, were acting like a filter. As the temperature changed in the warehouse, the barrel staves would absorb and release the whiskey over and over and over again. And it was filtering away some bad things, things that caused burn and bite, and smoothing the whiskey. The next question a curious mind would ask is, well, where did those things come from? And what they discovered was that those things came from fermentation. So the grain that you fermented to make the whiskey, the yeast converts some of those sugars into ethanol, which is what you drink. But not all those reactions that make the ethanol complete, and it's those incomplete reactions that create the minor alcohols that you know as methanol or propanol or butanol. And these are the bad things. And so Ty and Edward said, well, let's see if we can use chemistry, science, to get rid of those things. And they did, in fact, do that. They invented a technology that would react away or naturally cause those minor alcohol molecules to combine with some acids and become esters or good things. And it was an amazing invention. We've taken that technology and commercialized it. In our company, we began in 2007 into 3 markets, with a 4th about that happening now. But the first market was bulk. This is an ISO tank of 6,000 gallons of bourbon that we ship overseas. This fits on a container ship, that frame around that tank. And the reason that people buy our bourbon overseas is that it's a good value, because we don't have to age it 4 years, as most all of the bourbon consumed in the world is aged at least 4 years, because it takes that long for the barrel to naturally filter away enough of those bad things. But the technology that Ty and Edward invented can actually accomplish the same thing in 8 hours. So we age our bourbon 6 months to a year because you want it to be brown, you expect it to be brown, you expect it to have oak flavors, but we don't need to wait that much longer for it to be smooth enough to drink. We can accelerate that maturation process. And so that's led to us creating or having the advantage of a significant export market for our bourbon. The other thing we've done is create products, and by the way, the technology works on neutral spirits as well. It does it a little differently, but it improves all types of consumable alcohol spirits. So we create brands for people that want to have their own brand of a particular spirit and go out and market it. Some of our brand owners are here today. We also create brands for major national retail chains. We actually trademark and create the brand for them, and then we make it, bottle it, and it's sold to them through our distribution system. We have won over 100 medals in, I don't know now, 15 or 16 international taste competitions. These are blind taste competitions. Our products are measured against well-known brands. I was just informed yesterday that at the San Diego Spirits Festival, which was held last weekend, some of our products received 7 medals. So we find this as an affirmation of our technology. Around the world, we can find our spirits in a lot of countries. All those in red here. Of course, the United States, Canada, but Central America, South America, all over Europe, South Africa, India, China, Japan, and we just shipped our first into Russia yesterday. So we continue to open up markets. They continue to embrace our marriage of tradition and technology. And I hope the next time I show you this map, it'll be all red. So we're working hard at that. We actually have our products available here. We have our own brand, sort of our fourth market. Now that we have a distillery, the O.Z. Tyler Distillery has an O.Z. Tyler bourbon. This is not yet bourbon produced here. We made our first bourbon actually Friday and started filling our first barrels. But that bourbon will have to age to the point that we then can use our technology, which should be, I think, a year, 6 months to a year. And then O.Z. Tyler will be Kentucky bourbon made right here. But if you want to see what our technology does, first, you tasted it already if you ate your bourbon ball. And we thank Andrea's for doing those bourbon balls for us. But where our products are available in a number of locations. Here's what it looks like now. We're excited. We're looking forward to having you come visit. We've got a little gift shop. We're going to be doing tours. We look forward to one day being the western gateway to the Bourbon Trail. And I just can't tell you how much I thank all of you for all you've done to encourage us and help us along the way.